a huge privilege of mine to introduce you to our speaker. And I'll try to do it maybe without some tears. And Melissa was one of my first students quite a few years ago, and I have watched Melissa over the years grow as a human, as she's grown into an educator. She started in the BED program, and she has taken education by storm, and she has grown so much personally. She has done so much for Indigenous education. She's done so much for public education, and I couldn't think of a better person to come and speak to you today about what it is to be an educator in today's times. And Melissa has a powerful story to tell, and we are so fortunate to have her here speaking to us today, speaking to you. And I'm just so thankful that she's here. You've got this, Melissa. This is a friendly bunch, and they will love you. And so just come, make Melissa feel welcome, and come share from your heart, because we know it is a big, beautiful heart.
All right. So, I was asked today to come give you some advice and kind of give you little, tips and whatnot as you begin your education journey. And in my culture, I'm Mi'kmaq, you do that by storytelling. So I'm going to share a story with you today, and I will try not to get emotional, but I might, but it is a story that I tell, and I come out as a survivor with this story, okay? All right, so before we begin, I would like to do a land acknowledgement as we begin our presentation. We acknowledge that we are interacting today at UNB, an unceded Mi'kmaq and Willistic territory. All right, so this is me now. This is my beautiful wife, Vanessa. She's over here, my biggest fan. And this is our lovely family. We have 6 children, and we have one fur baby now. Unfortunately, Midnight, the black one, she passed away, but so that's our lovely family. And I stand here today happy, healthy, strong, thriving. But it always wasn't like that. It took me a long time to get to this point. So, who is Melissa Gugu-Dudan? I am from Elsipogtog First Nations. I was born and raised from a single mom. This is my mom right here. She's a 60 scoop survivor. If you are not familiar with 60 Scoop, it was back in the 60s when a bunch of Indigenous children were taken from their homes, put into foster care, adopted out of the community. So in those times, the experiences were very, very hard. So my mom, that's what she endured her childhood. When she tried to speak Mi'kmaq, she was, abused and whatnot. So when she had me at a young age, her Mi'kmaqness was gone. At that point, she was just surviving. So she did the best she could with raising me. And when you have a 60 Scoop survivors trying to just do the best they can, fighting the demons that they're fighting the addictions, it leaves the children kind of left on their own. So I moved a lot when I was a child, not a stable home, never knew where we were gonna sleep, had hand-me-downs, church handouts. Sometimes I didn't even know when I was gonna have my next meal. And with that, I had my 2 siblings that, because I was the oldest one, I was responsible for them. And I did have a grandmother who was back here up here in Canada, who I saw once in a great while. Unfortunately, both of these beautiful ladies have passed on. So that's what I had to endure as a child. Now, up until age 12, we were back and forth in the States, around Maine, back in Canada. Age 12, moved back here to Canada. Still didn't move back to the reserve, still living everywhere. And then at the age of 14, we finally moved back to Elsipogtog, where I'm from. My mom, because she was taken away at a young age, she didn't have a lot of connections. The family connection was gone. So she was still trying to survive and whatnot, which led me living on my own at the age of 14. I was couch surfing here and there and just trying to survive, right? At the age of 17, I became pregnant with my first child. And odds were really against me. You know, I didn't really have, family support. I was a teen mom, and I had a lot of negative things said to me at that time. And I'm going to read a passage that I wrote, because years forward, back in 2015, when I became an educator, I was asked for an interview. So I'm going to read a piece that I wrote that explains a little bit of my journey and what being pregnant at the age of 17 did for me, okay? At a very young age, I knew I wanted to become a teacher. Playing school with my younger siblings in an old fort was what planted the seed. However, life throws you curveballs every once in a while. Your future doesn't always happen the way you plan it out. I found myself in high school, not feeling as enthusiastic as I was when I was younger. I was parentless, pregnant, and no hope for the future. People judged me, they gossiped, and whispered behind my back. I even had a person tell me, "You are not going to be anything but a young, dumb Indian girl living on welfare with a bunch of kids." As hurtful as that was, I had to admit odds were against me. I was living on my own with no parent support, no income except $80 welfare check from the band office. Last but not least, I had no vision for the future. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I'd forgotten that little girl playing in school in the old fort. She was lost, I was lost. Although I felt helpless and defeated, I loved my unborn baby with every breath I took. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I promised my unborn child I would do what it took, no matter what, to give him or her a great life. I promised I would do great things to become someone important so that he or she would be proud of me. At the same time, I knew I had to finish high school. It was challenging, but thanks to the support and kind, loving teachers who took the time to get to know me and go out of their way to encourage me to keep going, I did it. I knew education was important and just needed someone to believe in me. I did graduate. So, at the age of 21, I graduated from high school. I was pregnant with my second child at that time. I had my child, my two stepchildren, they were younger at the time. I was pregnant with my fourth child, well, my second biological child, and I graduated from high school. And it was the teachers at the high school who believed in me that helped me do that. I had a principal at the time, and I'm going to mention him, Bill Kirsten. He advocated for me. He said, "We're not kicking her out." Because at that time I missed school here and there. I was a mom, young mom, bunch of kids, with education policies and whatnot. They don't accept that. You miss 15 days. She needs to be kicked out. And he's like, "No, you don't know her story. You don't know what she's going through." And so he advocated for me. And my teacher, Miss Hannah, she advocated for me, and she took me in when another teacher kicked me out of his class. "No, we're going to help you. We're going to get you through this." So, wonder why I tell you this. I tell you this story because education and teachers are very, very important. Now, I just need to fix my Wi-Fi because I can't keep going without it. Come on. There we go. Okay, so that was the article there, and I graduated. So now, I graduated from high school. At first, I didn't go off to university. I did try, but with my children's father, wasn't very supportive, and leaving home wasn't really an option for me. Until 2006. 2006 was the very first Wabanaki Bachelor of Education program. At the time it was called FENTEP, First Nation Education Teaching Program. And with this program that I enrolled in, it was classes in the evenings, classes at the weekends, summertime. So I really didn't have to leave home. I really didn't have to find someone to watch my children. I figured out how to do it on my own, and I did. So, 2006, I enrolled in the First Nation Teaching Education Program. 2011, I graduated right here from UNB with my Bachelor of Education, not to mention pregnant with my 5th child. So you can imagine, going to school, being a mom, working, it was quite challenging. So when I graduated with my BEd, I applied and got my teaching license. It was Cert 4. Okay, so I go in with my resume. I'm pumped, I'm proud, you know, I did this. I'm the first child of my grandmother to graduate from high school, to graduate from university, you know, that's on top of the world. I go in with my resume to the administrator at the time, and he says, "You can't work here." "Why not?" "You have a Cert 4. You can only be a supply teacher here." And I really didn't understand, because I didn't understand the different levels and whatnot. Totally burst my bubble. I went home and I contacted my mentor teacher. You see her here, Wendy McLaughlin, this is now Wendy Tebow. I'm like, "What is this Cert 4? What is he talking about?" He says, "Well," she tells me, and she explains the Cert level and Cert 5 and Cert 6 and the collective agreement and all that. She explained that all to me. I said, "Okay, all right. Not gonna go there. I'm gonna start supplying in the district. I'm gonna go back to school, and I'm gonna get my Cert 5. I was determined, right? Every time somebody tried to beat me down, it was motivation to work harder and just rise above that. And that's what I did. So in 2016, several years later, I graduated from 2 universities, Crandall University and the University of PEI, with 2 different master's degrees. And it's quite funny because on May 2016, on that specific date, I can't remember, I think it was the 23rd, I had to pick which graduation convocation that I needed to attend. So it was the same day, right? So it was kind of a dilemma, but kind of a cool dilemma, you know? So anyways, and since then, I worked in the provincial system, and I was in various roles, various schools, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself. I learned about what it means to be a teacher. And I continue to remember those teachers who helped me go through school. Okay. So this is my very first I just wanted to point out the QR code there is to my teacher portfolio. And I have a lot of cool highlights of cool things I've done in my career. So if you wanted to click that real quick and save that to look after, you can. And in this picture here, this is me and my best friend Katrina. We did this education journey together, and our 2 daughters kind of follows along. And there, that picture there is my 2 mentors, Diane Wilson and Wendy Tebow. They came to my graduation ceremony that I went to, and I picked Crandall because it was closer. So there is my very first classroom and my mentor teacher, Wendy. When I went off to do my practicum, it was 18 weeks right in the school, and that's it. You didn't have a break or anything like that. So I know it's changed and whatnot. But in those 18 weeks, she was very supportive. And when I had an idea, she's like, "Go ahead, try, go ahead." She didn't hold me back. She didn't limit me of what I wanted to do. It's like, "Hey, I think we should do this." "Okay, try it, go ahead." And so when you go off and do your practicum, I hope you are blessed with an amazing mentor teacher like I was. Now, my other mentor, Kevin Scully. So, when you work in the provincial system, you go around where the jobs are as a D contract teacher. And that's just how it is. You know, you start as a supply teacher, work your way up, long-term supply, you get your D. When you're a D, it's kind of semi-permanent, but not really. You go where the jobs are. And so for several years, I was learning different curriculums over the summer because I was placed different places. I had to go where the jobs were. So I landed in Harcourt School. It's a little town on the 126 between Miramichi and Moncton. And we had 26 students, and that's our staff there. And Kevin, he was the administrator, but he was a teaching administrator. And we co-taught literacy together, and he did gym. And at that time, I was back in 2000, from 14 to 16, he really helped me build my confidence even more. And I started really advocating for myself. And at that time, 21 years later, that's when I left my children's father. Because I realized, this unhealthiness that I've lived with my entire life, this is not normal. And he taught me that. Because he was, not only was he an administrator, he was an amazing supporter. And he believed every single one of these staff, this staff, that's our bus driver, our janitors, our EAs, our teaching staff, our secretary, he believed we all were important. And we all had something to contribute to those kids in that school. And he made us believe that all the time. So when I'm like learning this and he's teaching it and he's building my confidence, all right, you know, he really changed my life. And the funny thing is, when he retired, that's me and my daughter there, he retired, and at the time, when he retired, I was the administrator at Elsivictic School. And then when September came, he said, I think I'm gonna go work for Melissa. And so it was kind of funny to come full circle. He was my boss at that time, and then in the end, I was his boss, so that's pretty cool. And that's us there with one of our students when he graduated. So, all of this education, all of these experiences, I was vice principal at Elsivictic School for 3 years, and we just received a new school 2 years ago. That's me there. And because when I was administrator, I didn't have time to do teaching because some administrators do teach. I didn't have time to do that. So I took on a part-time job to teach here at university remotely. So I did that in the evenings. I was principal by day. That's what I did to fill my cup. And this afternoon, I have another very important interview and presentation for a director's position in the province. So I'm going to be doing that after I'm done speaking to you guys. So, my advice to you, okay? I tell you my story, a lot of things to take away from that. When kids show up in your classroom, you don't know what they're going through. You don't know what's happening in their homes. And this is going to be elementary school, middle school, high school, even university. You don't know what people are going through. So, my first advice for you, understand your why. Before you embark on this journey, I want you to take a moment. You know, I know this is your orientation day, but why are you here? And I'm gonna be straightforward. If it's because of summer breaks and winter breaks and March breaks and whatnot, if that's your why, then this is not the job for you. Because there's so much to it. And as you think about your why, your purpose, I want you to hold on to that. Because 5 years down the road, or even 5 months down the road, when you have a bunch of exams to do, a bunch of assignments, and you're stressed to the max, think about your why. Why am I doing this? And if it's strong enough and it's your passion, it will give you the motivation to get you through it. 5 years down the road, when you're a teacher and you have the most challenging class of the year and you are stressed, reflect on your why. Because that will give you the motivation to get up the next morning, show up for those kids, and do the best you can for them. Okay? So that's the first one. The second tip I have for you is I need you to acknowledge how important this job really is. I truly believe teaching is the most important job in the world, whether you're in elementary, middle, high, or university. Educators are the ones that create the future. Educators create the doctors, the scientists, the mathematicians, the tradesmen, the astronauts. It all started with education. And your experience and your impact with them, they will hold it. So if you're teaching math and you're giving out worksheets and you're make it boring and you don't give them hands-on manips or anything, guarantee that kid will never love math. So your experience and the way you interact with them, it really is important. And also, when you have a class, those kids are with you 8 hours of the day. You're responsible for someone else's children. I have 6 children. I was very on top of my children's teachers. Okay, what are you doing to support my kid? Because they're with them and influencing them 8 hours of the day, 5 days a week, 10 months out of the year, right? We have, as an educator, we have a high code of ethics to abide by. And I know teachers nowadays don't like to hear this, but when you become an educator, you are an educator 24/7. What you post on social media, what you do in your nightlife, people look at that and they scrutinize that. So you really need to think about it. I'm not saying you can't have a life. I'm just saying you need to understand that you are a teacher 24/7. All right, this is the hard one. I need you to acknowledge how challenging this job is, okay? Education is forever changing career, education system with the highest unrealistic expectations. When you go in to teach, you gotta model, you gotta make connections, you gotta take data, you gotta do report cards, you gotta go to staff meetings, you gotta do your PLC learning committee meetings. There's a lot. It's not about showing up, doing your lessons, sitting behind your desk, and there you go. There's so much more to that. And you need to understand that every student is different. You need to embrace that diversity. You need to take the time to get to know them, okay? Because like I said, like I shared my story, if my teachers didn't stop to understand what I was going through, I would have been kicked out and I wouldn't be here today. All right, so once you acknowledge how important it is, how challenging it is time to accept the responsibility. Once you accept this responsibility, you are accepting to abide by policies, confidentialities, the highest level of professionalism, and it is also accepting the responsibilities to continue to learn. When you graduate with your BA, that's not it. It does not prepare you for what it means to be a teacher. You need to continue learning, okay? And once you accept that responsibility, you need to show up each day. And this is the one that I love the most because you show up each and every single day and you treat those kids with kindness. You love them unconditionally, even the hardest ones to love. You accept their diversity, their cultural backgrounds. You take the time to get to learn their learning styles, and you really, really do a lot of work in this area. If you show up each day, you accept that responsibility and show up each day, I guarantee those students will remember you. If you make your classroom safe and inclusive for them, and it's fun and engaging, they will remember that and they will thrive. I'm going to share 2 stories at this point. So in grade 12, I had a teacher who didn't show up for me. I missed a test. Went to him. Do you think I can come in at lunchtime? Here I was, like 4 months pregnant. I missed the test because I had a doctor's appointment. So I go up to lunchtime. I said, do you think I can, do my test today or sometime this week during lunch? And he must have been having a really bad day, but he didn't put that aside. Tells me, I don't know what to do with you. You've missed so much time in my class. I really don't even know what to do with you. You need to get out of my class. And he legit kicked me out of his class at that very moment. And so he didn't show up for me. And I remember that. That was a long time ago, and I remembered that so vividly. And I remember crying in the guidance counselor office and said, if I don't get my English, I'm not graduated. So I need this English class to graduate. This is my last credit. I'm having my baby in October. I am not coming back in September. I'm telling you right now. And so I had another teacher who, you know what? We can do this. So she accepted me in her class, and it was a different English. It wasn't supposed to be the English that I was in, but she altered her syllabus a bit to make it work, so I got my English. She showed up for me. So you need to show up for the kids. The last one. Because this job is so hard and challenging and the most important job in the world, you need to take care of you first. You need to take care of your mental health, your physical health, keep it balanced, because I guarantee the stories that you learn from the kids in your classroom, you will hold them to your heart. And they will alter you, and you will take it on, and you will want to fix the world, and you realize you can't. It is hard. And you get bombarded with emotional baggage. So it's really, really important that you take care of yourself. You create networks, people that you can turn to. You hold on to those mentor teachers and those mentor instructors that you really connected with. Reach out to them for help. Okay? In my culture, we don't just talk about taking care of yourself in one domain. We look at different ways, your physical domain, your spiritual domain, your intellectual. So go into the gym, eating right, staying active. Your emotional domain, playing a board game, call a friend, do an act of kindness, intellectual, practice your hobbies. If you love to sing, sing. If you love to play an instrument, do that. You hold on to those hobbies and you hold on to those things that you love, because that's going to help you take care of yourself. Now, educators are lifelong learners. And like I said before, when you are done your Bachelor of Education program, that doesn't even begin to prepare you for what being an educator is really about and what it means to be in that classroom. So do not stop learning. Now, as my last slide, if you like to read, I recommend this book, Jodi Carrington, Kids These Days. She is an amazing author, and all the things I talked about with the challenges and the diverse needs of kids and what they're coming in to school with, she gives it to you straight. She has an audio of this book, and she's the one that's reading it, and she is the best. So I highly recommend this book. So I'll leave you with this last quote. It is all about relationship and connection. It is also simple and remarkable, complicated all at the same time. Build those relationships and those connections with the kids in your class, even the hardest ones to love. Thank you. That was my very first keynote presentation ever in my life, just saying. That is the first time I publicly shared my story, so yeah, for listening. All right.